Hello, my name is JulieAnn Hatala, and welcome to my Know Your TIEP presentation. The IEP transition domain I will be focusing on for this presentation is post-secondary ed and training. This setting is pre-K to 8 pull-out support, and there are two PA standards that align with this presentation. The first is in the career education and work category. The standard is identify and apply time management strategies as they relate to both personal and work situations. The second PA standard category is family and consumer science. This standard reads, deduce the importance of time management skills, for example, at home, at school, and during recreational activities. The student challenge that I'm focusing on during this presentation is challenge number 10. This reads, the student's parents have recently divorced. On weekends, the student stays with mom. With this new arrangement, the student will be responsible for laundry and basic house chores such as emptying the dishwasher, taking out the trash, keeping their room clean, and homework. The student has had a history of struggling with executive function skills in the past. So the student need that I have developed based on the student challenge is the student needs to remember the tasks he is responsible for completing. The targeted specific skill for this presentation, based on the student challenge and the specific student need, is that the student will need to make a to-do list for the weekend at the end of each school week. And I chose this skill because this is a skill that the student will be able to use in other contexts other than school. So the observable and measurable goal that is based on this student's skill is given access to a piece of paper, Brennan will write down the tasks he needs to complete over the weekend at the end of each week and will earn an average of at least a 5 out of 5 on the to-do list checklist, see Appendix A, given no more than 10 minutes. This shows the IEP transition grid, and you can see that the arrow is pointing to the post-secondary education and training goals section. This is where the service or activity I am focusing on will be because I am focusing on the employment domain. Here's the transition grid again, showing only the part pertaining to post-secondary ed and training. You can see the exact wording of my service or activity, which is Brennan will have an opportunity and be verbally reminded by his teachers to write a to-do list and complete the to-do list recording checklist, see Appendix A, to ensure he is writing a comprehensive to-do list for the weekend. Here is the beginning of the assessment tool for this service or activity. You can see that it is titled Appendix A, which aligns with the vocabulary used in the IEP transition grid as well. You have a copy of this assessment tool on the D2L discussion board too. The first page of the assessment tool lists things that have already been seen in the IEP, but they would help anyone who was not involved in the development of the IEP or this assessment tool know exactly what the goals and the reasons for this assessment tool are. Here is the to-do list checklist that the student would use after they have written their checklist. You can see that there is a space for them to write the date of the week they're writing their checklist for and the components that are measured in their checklist. So they need to include all the homework to be done over the weekend, house chores to be done in the kitchen, house chores to be done in the bedroom, house chores to be done in other areas of the home, and also an initial by the teacher. You can see that the week's to-do list is scored out of 5 points, and the scores are averaged monthly. This is another part of the assessment tool, and it's the scoring procedures and rules. You can see that the scoring procedures follow very closely with the vocabulary used in the actual checklist. This is another thing that would help anyone who did not help develop the IEP or the assessment tool understand exactly how to score the checklist, so the results and the data for the student's performance remain valid and reliable. This is another part of the assessment tool that helps the team keep really detailed track of the student's progress. So this part asks, did the student meet the observable and measurable goal? Any notable observations, and also team recommendations. So it can help the IEP team know whether they're going to continue this assessment, reteach the skill, review the skill, or revise the assessment. Now that we've seen how the data will be collected for this assessment, let's talk about what kind of data will be collected. So there is definitely qualitative data that will be collected from this assessment tool. And the qualitative data is the tracking the student's ability to record all the homework to be done on a 1 to 5 point scale. And you can also see that the tracking of the student's ability to list the various types of chores. So there are house chores to be done in the kitchen, house chores to be done in the bedroom, and other areas of the home. All of these abilities will be rated on a 1 to 5 point scale. And then finally, the ability of the student to get a teacher to initial the to-do list will also be measured on a 1 to 5 point scale. So this tool allows the team to track weekly performance for as long as the team determines is necessary. And it is weekly performance because the student is performing this task once a week. The tool also allows the team to see qualitative trends across each of the 5 tasks. So this assessment tool also collects quantitative data, and the quantitative data collected by this assessment tool is the connection to the IEP transition domain, the teacher made notable observations, and the trends that can be tracked in the student behaviors or observations, as well as notable recommendations based on the student's performance. Here we can see the connection to present level data. So this shows how the table would be included in the present levels portion of the IEP and what the data would look like. And this table shows data if I had only recorded data for January and February, and this would be the quantitative data for those 2 months. So you can see the averages for each of the columns, and also notice that the columns have the same headings and vocabulary as the checklist. This shows more of the connection to the present level data, and it actually shows how progress of the actual service or activity would be recorded. So you can see that the exact wording of the service or activity is listed again, and that is Brennan will have an opportunity and he will be verbally reminded by his teachers to write a to-do list and complete the to-do list recording checklist, which is in Appendix A, to ensure he is writing a comprehensive to-do list for the weekend. And this shows the progress of that service or activity if data had been recorded for January, February, and March. As far as the resources and the cost for this service or activity, the only resources that are really needed are the to-do list checklist, an adult to sign off on the checklist weekly, and at least 10 minutes on the last school day of the week for the student to complete their to-do list checklist and revise their to-do list if necessary. And there's really no cost other than the 10 minutes needed to complete the task. Now we can see the big picture connections. So when looking at the question, how is acquiring this skill going to increase post-school success for students in the pre-K to 8 with disabilities? There are a few things to consider. So, this skill can be used across many contexts. So, it's not a skill that can be taught and only used within the context of school. This activity gives the student the opportunity to see that list making can be used in areas that are not related to school because he is asked to write down the things he needs to do at home that are not just homework. This will serve him in the future because it helps him see that large tasks can be broken up into a list of smaller, more manageable tasks. And it also helps him see that things are easier to remember when you write them down. So he doesn't have to worry about that issue of forgetting what he needs to get done. If everything is written down, he can just look back at his list. It also holds the student accountable for what he needs to get done. So he has the choice of thinking about the different chores he might have to do around the house and writing those down as he sees fit. Some published evidence that reinforces the necessity for students to learn this skill can be seen in Chapter 2 of our textbook. The quote from the textbook that I chose is: "The last step in helping to ensure student self determination is discovering the individual goals the student has for their lives and also seeing the need to enhance their own self determination skills that are not covered in the UDT lessons and instruction developed for the whole class." Thank you so much for listening to my presentation. I look forward to hearing your feedback during our next class following one of the prompts listed below.